Good afternoon. We have a few more folks who joined us, and I still see more folks logging in. We're going to get started with today's office hours. My name's Kathleen McGarry. I'm one of the LEAPS supervisors. I'm joined by Abby Langdon, one of our program managers, and we'll be providing an overview of LEAPS and professional development. Um, Before we get started, I just want to ask Piper if you could manage the Q&A. It really is a team effort here for putting on these office hours. You'd appreciate it if you could do that.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Thank you. So let me get started. Sorry, we still have a few more folks joining us, which is great. As with the other office hours, we're recording this. We will be posting the slide deck and the recording on our OCFS websites, and it will be available for review. So let's see. So this month's office hours is going to cover professional development and incorporating it into your LEAPS program. We're briefly going to visit the regulations and the request for proposal, also referred to as the RFP, requirements around professional development and how they provide the foundation for LEAPS programs. The foundation of the LEAPS programs, sorry, I'm going to try and mute my Teams. It's probably not going to work. No. My apologies. All right. The foundation of the LEAPS programs also found in the child care regulations, as all sites are required to have a school-age child care registration. So first, we're going to take a brief look at the regulations. Thank you, Linda, for having that slide up. The regulations, the policy statements, and other resources, including Dear Provider letters, can be found on the OCFS website. We know that high quality training is key for protecting the health and safety of children while promoting their development. New York State Social Service Law and the Child Care and Development Block Grant Act require training for individuals in certain roles in child care programs. And this requirement is included in the OCFS daycare or child care regulations, section 414.14 for SAC programs. This statute regarding training applies to all OCFS licensed or registered child daycare programs in all counties of New York State and the 5 boroughs of New York City. And the training staff takes will provide them with the knowledge and skills to best serve families and children. The New York State child care regulations are located on the OCFS website. The hyperlink that's embedded into the PowerPoint, which will be available on the LEAPS website when this office hours is posted. We just want to highlight that health and safety training that meets the federal minimum requirements must be obtained prior to working with children or within 3 months of starting the position. So please be sure that your staff are familiar with the regulations and the specific requirements around all regulations, but also training. So every staff person and volunteer is required to complete a minimum of 30 hours of training every 2 years. Many of our programs have built-in training days for all staff in September prior to the start of the upcoming school year. Others build into their schedules staff professional development days when the after-school program isn't operating during the school year. And this is to ensure staff are receiving the same information and trainings are planned out to meet the requirements of the SAC regulations. And new staff are required to complete 15 hours of training within the first 6 months of their employment. And it's essential that child care programs have a plan to onboard new staff that include not only the OCFS required training, but training specific to your organizations and policies. Today, I'll be highlighting one of our LEAPS contractors and how they meet the training requirements and supporting their staff. I'm sure for many of you this looks familiar. Here are the 9 topic areas required by the OCFS regulations. So in addition to the required topics, LEAPS after-school programs are required to utilize the Positive Youth Development Framework, and your staff should be receiving training on PYD and its principles, and how the principals and the staff themselves contribute to the LEAPS programs and promote the growth and well-being of children who attend the program. The other key part of the foundation for LEAPS programs is the request for proposal, which we refer to commonly as RFP. The LEAPS RFP required proposals to include how applicants would ensure staff professional development and training would be provided. This is one of the elements of scoring. Staff developing the training schedules for their organizations should be familiar with this portion of your organization's proposals. The RFP also states that professional development expenses, including travel expenses, are eligible for reimbursement. Programs need to consult with their OCFS program manager for prior approval for trainings that are costly and not one of the 9 listed topics on the previous slide. With contracting, contractual agreements need to be obtained prior to service delivery, and where applicable, multiple bids may need to be obtained. The LEAPS RFP. Also addressed in the RFP is a requirement for programs to conduct self-assessment and planning of LEAPS programs. Applicants design the program must include the 10 essential elements of high-quality expanded learning opportunity programs as outlined in the Network for Youth Success Quality Self-Assessment Tool, also referred to as the QSA. The QSA tool must be used by all LEAPS awardees once each year for self-assessment and planning for program improvement. This provides an opportunity for program leaders and staff, in collaboration with other stakeholders, to utilize a common set of standards to assess, plan, design, and execute strategies for ongoing program improvement. The QSA Tool User's Guide provides instruction on how to optimize the QSA process. The slide here is just a snapshot of the QSA tool, as well as a link to the tool itself and additional information to support your organization in completing the QSA. We'll be looking briefly at the QSA and elements related to training and professional development. These are the 10 elements that programs assess in our annual QSA, but today we'll be focusing on the staffing and professional development elements. We just want to highlight that quality programs, including LEAPS programs, support staff development through ongoing training and professional development, leading to stronger skills and improved program quality. Taking a look at the QSA, these are the 4 sections of the QSA that we'll be looking at briefly. We'll be looking at the different elements in the sections and discuss indicators of high-performing organizations. The first section we're looking at is hiring and onboarding staff. Program staff should be reflective of the community that they are serving, including speaking the native language of the non-English speaking participants and or their families. This is an area that an organization may need to assess and how to address, including identify ways to recruit prospective staff from local schools and organizations. Programs should have a standard orientation process for new employees that includes an understanding of the organization and program culture, the mission and the goals of the larger organization, and also the LEAPS programs. All staff should be provided with a handbook that includes expectations of employees. The training should include the Positive Youth Development Framework and positive behavior management protocols. Professional development, supervisor support, and employee performance goals are clearly communicated and linked to the program's missions and goals. Potential staff members are assessed on their academic and relevant skills for working with participants. The program utilizes staff strengths and talents to support program development and activity. There are ongoing professional development opportunities for staff to build academic competencies to share with participants. The site and their director assigns tasks and activities based on staff's knowledge and experience. And again, these are indicators of high-performing organizations that programs should be striving towards if they're not already meeting them. The next section we're going to be looking at is ongoing professional development. New and seasoned staff should have the opportunity for ongoing professional development. In addition to the required OCFS training and the organization's annual trainings, professional development should be more varied to include conferences, instructional training, as well as mentoring and coaching. Staff are provided opportunities to share what they have learned with staff and implementing into program. The next indicator would be programs director selects trainings with input from staff members. Staff development opportunities are offered throughout the year. Training and workshops or sequences are built upon one another, and trainings are offered staff-wide as well as based on the individual needs of staff members. Staff members are expected to plan suitable activities for participants, and staff should receive training and printed information about the developmental stages and age-appropriate activities of the youth they're caring for. Fourth element, staff members are encouraged to earn professional credentials, and we'll discuss some of the related resources for this topic towards the end of the presentation. And last, when appropriate, staff are able to provide educational opportunities to adult learners, including family members and their community leaders. The staff receives support for working with adult learners. I think this is a really strong indicator of a high-performing organization when they develop their staff professionally to the point that the staff are able to go out into the community or run groups for parents. So that's a huge part of the professional development for your staff working with the children to graduate from working with the kids to doing some training to not only their colleagues, but also to the community at large. Something else I wanted to point out, we talk about staff should be receiving training and printed information about the developmental stages and age-appropriate activities for the youth they're caring for. As a parent and a former licenser, I always valued that. If programs sharing that not only with their staff so they have a solid understanding and helping them understand the developmental stages of the population they're caring for, but also sharing those tip sheets with parents. I think it really brings things around full circle when information is being shared internally within the organization, but also externally with the families. That's the next slide. So we're going to be looking at programmatic structure. The program elements of a high-performing organization would be the program or site director coaches staff members regularly, and this includes meeting with staff to discuss their performance and set individual professional development goals. Staff members attend training regularly and have opportunity to share the learned strategies. So they're just not going to these trainings and taking that information from themselves, but they're coming back to the program and either in staff meetings or mentoring with their colleagues, providing some of the strategies that they learned in the training and helping their colleagues implement it into the after school program. The next indicator is having staff meetings. So staff are aware that there are meetings, they're scheduled, held regularly. It's often best if the time of the meeting and the day of the meeting is the same time, or it's the first Monday of every month, or whatever works for your organization. But staff are aware that the meetings are coming and are also aware that they're required to participate and contribute to the meeting agenda and share their successes and challenges in the after school program. Another element we look at is the staff evaluation. And like the program has ongoing annual self-assessment through the QSA, programs should have tools to provide feedback to staff, including evaluations. This is essential for identifying areas of strength, building an area where there's room for growth, and recognizing the employee's performance. The information is used to inform the staff members of their goals for the upcoming year and to collect suggestions from them how to create additional professional development opportunities. The program should use an established set of quality standards, evaluation framework, and program improvement strategies. And staff, family, and participants have regular opportunities to learn about it and offer input about what a quality program looks like to them. And this is another area that programs should be assessing and developing a plan for improvement that may include professional development. So next, we're going to hand this over to my colleague, Abby Langdon. We're going to look at one of her LEAPS programs that she's a program manager for. It's Red House Art Center in Syracuse, New York. And Red House had graciously outlined an overview of their annual training and professional development that they implement. Abby?
Thank you, Kathleen. As Kathleen mentioned, we're just going to take this time to highlight the successes of the Red House Art Center. They are gracious enough to share information with us that we are able to share with you, and kind of the real boots on the ground type of work. So they have been identified through annual observation to have successfully implemented regular and ongoing professional development into programming. The Red House Art Center has provided a brief overview of their trainings, the professional development style, practices, and schedule to share for continuing success for other LEAPS vendors that is embedded into this PowerPoint for future reference. This model and schedule of training and professional development has proven successful. The basic schedule for this vendor includes staff orientation annually, weekly site-based coaching and feedback cycles, year-end reflection and staff recognition, and summer training sessions to reinforce best practices. 5 major categories of training have been identified by this vendor as well, and is in regular and ongoing programming. Group management, which has proved to be successful through program observations to enhance experience for youth in attendance by maintaining appropriate group involvement and emphasizing relationships within the classroom setting. Utilizing ownership of program quality and program development has proven effective for direct care staff to stay engaged with daily operations and youth development. Many staff also create their own curriculum and lesson plans to further enhance the program and staff success. Health and safety should go beyond the basic mandatory SAC regulations and incorporate room, site-specific protocols for behavior needs as well as physical safety needs. Curriculum training remain up to date and involve youth interests, educational standards, and development. This creates a positive and engaging environment for both staff and enrolled youth. Positive youth development training is centered around the whole child, incorporating and identifying PYD domains and features as part of the objectives of ongoing, regular professional development. Utilizing resources highlighted in PYD models is essential for continual program growth and success. Training should be diverse in topic as well as frequency. This vendor uses daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal, and as needed. All programs do have different needs, but professional development should be intentionally planned and scheduled regularly. External resources are available and costs can be reimbursed by LEAPS funding. And you can discuss this with your program manager for contract-specific professional development plans or questions. I want to take the time to highlight the success regular and adaptive training has had on programs through staff who have excelled and grown through trainings. Key staff characteristics that lead to program success: adaptability, energy, engagement, classroom management, planning, relationship building, and more. These characteristics can be built and strengthened through continuous and regular professional development and training. And I invite you to take a look at these slides so you can see the highlighted real life examples that were given to us on how trainings supported the program and supported the staff involved. You can go to the next slide. There are many websites that have information on professional development opportunities. There's additional no or low cost professional development resources can be found on the Network for Youth Success website, including obtaining a SAC credential. The OCFS childcare website has all the required regulations, as we discussed earlier in section 414, and policy statements in addition to an entire section on training. The website contains value information and links to their resources, and again, highly encourage you to spend some time visiting these opportunities. OCFS contracts with SUNY Professional Development Program, or PDP, to create and make available no-cost e-learnings. These trainings are available on their website. They can be taken virtually at you and your staff's convenience. These trainings are also directly imported into the OCFS training record for staff and volunteers listed on your SAC. So it makes it easy to track and demonstrate compliance with OCFS training requirements. The Aspire Registry is an online system that supports early childhood professionals and recognizes the valuable work that you do. We are working to bring increased recognition and professionalism to the early childhood field across New York. OCFS offers funding support through the following: LEAPS funds, which can reimburse up to 100% for appropriate and approved trainings and professional developments. EIP and MAT are other opportunities that are free of charge or reimbursable directly through OCFS. Again, encourage you to spend some time going through this PowerPoint and clicking on these links and understanding what is available to you. As we come to the close, before we open up for Q&As, I want to say a few reminders. We do have the sustainability plans that are due at the end of this month on 5/29, May 29th, 2026. Quarter 3 also is coming to a close the last day of the month, 5/31, 2026, and claims are to be submitted 30 days past, so that would give you till June 30th, 2026. The claims are being processed contingent upon receipt of the LEAPS sustainability plan. So if you have not sent those to your program manager, or you may be unsure if you sent them, please reach out and clarify. All claims are required to be logged in CMS by the contractor. This is something that we are really moving into this year, and it is very, very important that claims themselves are logged by contractors themselves. The following documents are also required to be uploaded into CMS: the annual breakdown and expense form, the ABE. It's also, I think, titled as a claims form. Some people saved it differently. The non-personal services form, or the NPS. So this is anything other than personnel services. Your attendance form. Each quarter has its own tab. Please make sure that all days of program service are reported, including community engagement and parent engagement events. And the program report for each LEAPS site should also be uploaded. Be sure that you're uploading these forms separately. CMS is not the most user-friendly when it comes to formatting, so a lot of times it doesn't accept all of them combined into one. And now we will open up for Q&As.
So far, there are no questions, but I will let you know when they come in.
Great, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Abby. And I just want to point out, in addition to any questions you may have had, what we just went over, we're also available for questions regarding claims. Abby had highlighted the forms that need to be uploaded in the CMS. I think there's been a significant improvement. It's been a learning curve for all of us. But I think a lot of the claims I'm seeing, the contractors are uploading what's needed. The forms seem to be filled out properly. I know some contractors are still having challenges, sometimes separating the annual breakdown expense form from non-personal services. If you're having that as a challenge, please let us know, because we do need to have those separated in the claims. So when our team's going through the review process, we can pull the documents side to side and compare one to the other. We also have resources that we can send you if you just need a refresher.
So we do have one question that came in from Renee Murray, and Renee asks, is there a way to put a regulations/compliance specialist on site for 15 hours a week?
And Renee, I think when you're saying, is there a way to put a regulations compliance specialist on site, I'm assuming this relates to the budget. That, yeah, if you want to add a position, or sometimes that's a responsibility that might be added to an existing position, that would be something that we could look at adding on. I don't see it would be a program cost. I guess I'm just wondering if you're looking for somebody to do like coaching, or just making sure that they're in compliance with the regulations. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Sure. She said coaching or,
Oh, sorry, I see more. Yes. Yeah, so coaching, again, typically when I've seen that as part of like maybe other program director, that's part of their work responsibilities, and we could add that. Let me see. And I think we'd always take this. We're going to be compiling Q&As, and we can provide some feedback. and your program manager can also follow up with you about this. But yeah, I don't see an issue with that. I just would like to see what it would look like as far as what it would look like on the responsibilities on the A1 and the budget, because that would help guide us. And I just want to point out, Tim Fowler's here from the Network for Youth Success. Thank you for joining us, Tim. He's doing a training for LEAPS on coaching as supervision this Friday. And he's going to put the link in the description here momentarily so we can share that with you. So that would be a great opportunity to, that's something you're, would like to fill in. You can certainly, we'll share the information with you and you can sign up for that. Tim put it in the chat. Can everybody see the Q&As? I guess that's a. So
now they should be able to see them, Kathleen. I have to go in and just answer them. So
okay, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so from Tim Fowler, supervisors and directors will explore techniques that support staff growth and development in this workshop, building on positive youth development approaches. Participants will learn that staff need to be dependable, independent adults in the workplace, and what leadership needs to do to get them there. The session will count for 1.5 hours of OCFS training on topics, I believe it's 5. Okay. And there's a link there. So I'm sorry, Piper, is there a way we could share the link?
we might have to send that out afterwards, or folks can copy it and paste it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we can send this out. If we have the participant list, we can send this out to folks. Yes. All right. And Tim says it's also was sent out in their newsletter list. So if you're looking for that training to sign up for, it was sent out in the newsletter as well. Something just kind of jumping back to us talking about the claims coming due for June 30th. I was just asked to remind our contractors to double check their SAC registration numbers in the program reports. During the review process, some of our team members are seeing the errors, and we think that's just make sure you have the correct header for the correct site and the correct SAC number when you're submitting program reports.
Great. And we just had another question come in about expenses. Yasmin wanted to reach out to ask if it's recommended that expenses only be allocated for events, and also ask if this includes snacks. In addition to this, can staff PD also be allocated from the budgets as well? And she states it was great to see you at the conference. So I just shared that, so you should be able to see it, Kathleen, too.
Thank you.
Of course.
So yeah, expenses should only be allocated for events. And so it depends how the budgets are written. So some of our contractors, we provide a template for the budgets, the year 2 budgets, which we're contractors, majority of our contractors are working under. We'll be coming out in the next few weeks with the year 3 template. So it depends how your agency writes the budgets. Some of our contractors might utilize a line for family engagement events, and that might include expenses related to it, including like the food, decorations, any games that they might have, and they might have it as one line. Some of our contractors like to break out the food separately. So they might have all those expenses related to a family engagement event, like I was just saying, like, the balloons, decorations, any games that they might be renting and utilizing might be under one expense. And then some programs opt to have the food under a separate line. So it depends how your agency does it. In addition to this, can staff professional development be allocated from the budget as well? Yes, we have a line. It's interestingly enough, we do have a line in the budget under travel for, it's typically for conferences. Like if you're traveling to a conference, like the LEAPS conference, that would all go there. Some programs also have the professional development line and the other. So for instance, you're having CPR and first aid, they would have a professional development line that would include OCFS topics, which includes CPR and first aid. So when an organization, they might have a budget for like, $8,000, they have somebody come in and train a bunch of staff on CPR and first aid, that could be charged to the professional development line. You just need to be mindful about how the expenses, if it's a contract, if you're having an organization, the same organization come in that year to do multiple trainings, it does need to meet the bidding requirements. If it's going to exceed the $15,000 threshold over the course of the 5 years, you need to have agreements. So hopefully what our contractors should be doing is when they're calling around for training, we want our contractors to make the most of the LEAPS contracts and get the best value for the dollar. So they should be calling around to different organizations to find out, which organization would be good for them, as far as coming during the times that your staff are available for the training, and also like what the cost of the training is. And then when you identify the contractor, there should be an agreement that this person's going to come out, they're going to offer, 2 CPR classes, and it's going to be, 3 hours each. I forget how long CPR is now. Yeah, so it depends how it's written into your contract or how you're going to be utilizing the service provider, where it would go. But there's definitely, we encourage contractors to use the LEAPS funding for professional development. And again, I just want to stress that we have those 9 topic areas that we referenced earlier in the training. Those are OCFS allowed topics, the PYD training. If your contract is looking to bring somebody on board to do training that's kind of more abstract than what we're accustomed to seeing, or if it's a costly training, again, your agency should be doing the legwork to call around and see if there's a comparable training for less money, and reach out to your OCFS program manager if it's kind of out of the scope of the standard topics of OCFS training, or if the amount is costly.
And we had another question just come in from Melissa, wondering if there's any update on Pathwise.
Good question. I don't know. I'm going to throw it out there because I have some folks responding to me separately, see if there's any updates. While I'm waiting for a response from one of my colleagues, I'm not aware of any updates. So there's that. Let's see. Oh, I'm getting a response. Yeah, Tim can update the group. So we can unmute Tim, and Tim Fowler from the Network for Youth Success. Yes, please, Tim. I'd appreciate that.
Are you able to unmute him, Kathleen? I can't see the attendee list, so if you or Linda can just right click on his name and you should be able to unmute him, or you can promote him to a panelist and he can unmute himself.
Okay, I think I can unmute him. There we go.
Wonderful.
All right. Then my mouse does not want to unmute you.
You hear me?
Yep, there you are. Yes.
Great. Hi, everybody. Timothy Fowler. I'm the project director with the School Age Technical Assistance Resource Center. Last week, there was a training on Pathwise. People who attended that training received the link to the recording, and we also emailed that out earlier this week to our newsletter list. So if you're on our newsletter list, that was one of the first items in that updated newsletter. One of the things we did at the training was ask people to tell us who is the primary, meaning like the overall responsible person for all of your grants. So if you have multiple LEAPS contracts, who's the person in charge of all of them? And we're giving that person user credentials. So once that person gets user credentials, they can start assigning site level people or data entry people or anyone else and begin to set up your site. So Pathwise is live. It is ready to go. We currently have a list of 24 programs that were at the training who said, yes, this is the correct person, please set us up. And our partner at Expanded Schools, Mark Herreros, is reaching out to those one by one to help each of them get set up so that we can see what some of the issues are and like what the problems might be. And then our hope is that by the end of this week or early next week, we will send out an email to everyone again with the recording and with that form so that we can start to get everybody into the system and give everybody user credentials. Moving forward, if anyone has problems with Pathwise and getting their user credentials, you'll contact your Resource Center program specialist and we'll help you get set up. So it's starting. Not everyone has gotten their credentials yet because we're trying to go slow to make sure that we address big problems before we make it widely available. But in the next week or so, people should be getting an email either from me through our newsletter or from your program specialist, or you might get a call from Mark Herreros with Expanded Schools saying, hi, I want to get you set up. Are you the correct person? Let's get you in. I'm going to send you a link and try to handhold people through the process so that they can get up and ready. And that was a lot. So the first thing people should do is watch the recording, which was emailed out to our newsletter list. And I can put that in the chat too, so that you can share it as a part of the follow-up from this meeting.
Thank you, Tim. Very helpful.
Yeah, we had a bunch of folks that said that they signed up on the Google form to be notified of the Pathways training, but they never received anything.
I sent that email out the day of. So if you're not getting emails from me, it might mean that I'm blocked because you're like, stop sending me emails. So apologies for that. There is going to be a follow-up live session later this month. We're trying to send out more update emails to people so that these things don't fly past you. So apologies if you did not get the alert about that. There will be another live training later this month, and I'm going to make sure that the recording to the one that happened is also included here. And if you were at the training and you submitted the form to say this is the person who should get user credentials, we're working through that one at a time to slowly get people into the system so that we can troubleshoot before we get everyone else. So apologies for the delay.
All right, thank you, Tim. And just a question, I'm sorry, just looking through the Q&As. How do they sign up for the newsletter?
If they visit nysatarc.org, that's newyorksatarc.org, there's a form on the website and they can get news directly from us. So we send out a monthly newsletter with articles, updates, and professional development. And then I've been sending follow-up emails during the month about added professional development and updates like this recording to the Pathways training.
Great, thank you. All right. So yeah, and I know just from my experience, like sometimes you have to go through, especially if it's a new to you person who's sending it or organization, check your junk mail and make sure it's not getting diverted there. All right. So we've got quite a few questions. So we talked about the Pathwise, and again, we have some of that information which we can share when we post this office hours on our websites. Certainly reach out to your program manager. They can certainly we can get the information internally and then send it to you. That's also another resource. We had some questions about summer programming, about what's the status of funding for summer camp. So a few things. I'm not familiar with that specific contractor, but the contract year runs from September 1st until August 31st. So any of our contractors with the LEAPS program during the school year, if they are looking to use the LEAPS funding for summer programming, a few key pieces of information. The summer programming needs to operate under the SAC registration of the school age child care registration. It cannot be a camp permit, so make sure that's the case. Make sure that you're working with your OCFS program manager to make sure that you have budgeted and have the proper paperwork on file in your contract to operate summer programming. We've had a few programs that did not communicate this to us in the past. They saw they had extra money and thought it'd be great. And it is great. We want to serve children. And if we can stretch that money into summer, then that's fabulous. But make sure you're in communication with your program manager at OCFS to ensure that all the proper paperwork has been submitted and is approved, and make sure that you're operating under your SAC registration and your licensor or registrar are aware of it. So it's reflected on your SAC registration that you are operating for the summer. There's another question about, are LEAPS programs required to execute programming? I'm not sure what that means. Harriet, can you elaborate in the chat? So all programs are to be operating. Two things, LEAPS is an after-school funding source. So all programs need to be providing after-school programming in alliance with their contract documents that they've submitted to their program manager. If you're having challenges operating, you need to communicate this to your program manager. If there's sometimes the challenges are, increasing enrollments, making sure that you have, if anything changes pertaining to your SAC registration, for instance, you're using space that's not yours and you're being asked to move rooms typically it's a school that building that we encounter these issues, for construction purposes or something. If things are being changed or moved around, you do need to notify your licensor or registrar, because your SAC is based on the capacity, based on the rooms that have been inspected and approved. And as I'm sure many of you know, if you're part of the licensing process, the tape measures come out. We measure square footages and determining like how many kids can fit in the space safely and in compliance with the regulations. But if there's any changes, make sure you're speaking with your licensor or registrar and letting your OCFS program manager know regarding the LEAPS contract. Tim provided the recording. Thank you, Tim. Because I unfortunately missed that too, and I was hoping to attend. Let's see. If we haven't received reimbursement in time, that's a pretty broad question. So the claims are due 30 days after the quarter ends. Obviously, if a contractor has, their budget was still in the process of being finalized this year, and wasn't finalized before Q1 was due, you would be working with your program manager with the time frame. Yeah, it's hard to answer that question, but what I can say is that the claims, especially in year 2, Linda, maybe if you want to text me that information, we had that last week or 2 weeks ago at the LEAPS office hours. The turnaround time has been, I think it's typically less than 30 days. And Linda, we can't hear you. Guessing that's you. There you go. Yeah. Something's up with your microphone. Still. Harry, if you want to put the name of your organization in the chat, questions and answers, I can. Linda, you're like, yeah, there's like static coming through your line. I just muted you. It's less than 30 days right now that we're turning around. So when a claim gets submitted to us, it's in all the documents are properly submitted, the amounts are correct across the documents, the information is consistent. We're processing the claims. It goes through our review process within OCFS, and it's less than 30 days. I've been hearing 2 weeks. That's not surprising to me. That's how it was, in the past. We get a good solid claim in, everything's there. We can turn around quickly. One of the challenges that some of you folks may have encountered is if you're submitting claims in year 2, is a lot of the claims are being audited by the state comptroller. So you submit it to the OCFS team, we're reviewing it, we're moving along, it gets approved, and then after it gets approved, but before the money is released, we're getting emails from the state comptroller's office advising us that claims are being, that particular claim is being audited. So what you can do as a contractor is when you submit your claim to your into CMS, make sure you have a folder on your desktop or wherever you, and you have all the backup documentation clearly labeled. So when you have your NPS and you have 20 lines of expenses, and that's probably being conservative if a program's only doing 20, has 20 receipts for a quarter, but make sure you have all the receipts scanned into your computer. Make sure you have payroll records readily available. When OSC notifies us, we are provided with a tight deadline. So we reach out to you, the contractor, and say, hey, we need this information back in 24 hours. You get it back to us, it's all there. We can forward it to OSC within that time frame, and the claim won't be rejected. If your paperwork's not in order, if you don't have everything compiled, if you're not meeting that 24-hour deadline that we give you, what happens is OSC ends up rejecting the claim that we had just approved. The money isn't paid out, and you have to relog the claim and have the backup ready for the second submission. So the key with claiming is make sure where I see that organizations seem to be struggling is, the program reports aren't completed. Like Linda had mentioned to me earlier that a contract fills out a program report, they have a different SAC number. They have it for one of their sites, but not the site they're reporting on. Those are really things that can be avoided through proofreading or whatever systems your agency has in place, that whoever's preparing the documents and submitting it to CMS, that there's some process within your agency to make sure somebody's reviewing what's being presented for a claim, and it's reviewed for errors before it's submitted into CMS. But Harry, yeah, please, if you can put in the Q&As what organization, I could certainly speak with your program manager. Her name's not jumping out at me, so I'm not, it might be one of the other supervisors unit, and you're welcome. Just want to point out, my manager also just messaged me that yes, the claims are being approved within less than 30 days and is 65% faster. The claims, like I said, I'm seeing it's about 2 weeks. All right. Something else I said earlier about the budgets going out, the budget templates, they were actually sent out last week. So if you, in your organization, if you're responsible for developing the budget and you haven't seen it, reach out to your LEAPS person to make sure that they have shared the budget template with you. Please be looking at the budget template, thinking about how your spending was this year. If you plan on keeping things similar, if you're making changes, like Renee was asking earlier about adding a position, this is a time to do it while you're developing the budget. So as thoroughly as that budget's developed for year 3, it's going to be quicker for claimings. We can avoid doing spending adjustments because that consumes time and energy and resources from our contractors as well as our team. So the best position that budget's in, based on how you plan to be spending, and hopefully we'll be spending the funds, will put you in a better place for claiming as well. Is there any form that is recommended to be used to keep track of budgeting expenses, orders, trips, food, etc.? So we have a couple of forms. We have the annual breakdown of expense form that's given to the finance team that mirrors your budget that's been approved. So it says how much money has been allocated for field trips, how much money has been allocated for professional development. The contractors, you know, whatever systems your organization has in place, and for some organizations, it might be a more universal tool within the organization on how they want their staff to track expenses. Certainly that should be shared with the LEAPS folks as well. And I'm trying to recall, I met many people at the LEAPS conference, and I was saying at one point I should have just had everybody sign their names just so I could recall who I spoke to. One of the things is we have a tool that came into fruition in at the start of LEAPS contract. It's called the non-personnel services expense form. And it's a breakdown where in the past a contractor would tell us on the annual breakdown of expense form, I spent $5,000 this quarter on program supplies, but we didn't necessarily know what that $5,000 was unless the claim was being audited or we had to ask for backup because we need clarification or something. With the onset of LEAPS, we're requiring that contractors tell us, like, what did you specifically spend on program supplies? So if, you know, September 2nd, you went to Walmart and you spent $100, you know, you would list Walmart, you know, September 2nd, what you purchased at Walmart. You know, we purchased paper, we purchased crayons, we purchased craft paper, scissors, etc. We were seeing those details. I know we had a conversation, I can't recall if it was you, I had suggested to actually it ended up being a few different agencies that maybe their program staff can fill out the NPS form, even if it's not the one that's actually submitted to claims, but it kind of takes some of the onus off the finance department by having their program people are spending the money, they're doing the shopping, they're doing the ordering, they're receiving the deliveries, they know what the items were in that Walmart order. They can fill out like what specifically was purchased as far as like the description, and then how much was spent. And that's something that might be helpful to you to use. So you can report back to your finance department or the program director, like how much money was spent that quarter in the specific line. Can these forms be shared with us via email, or can we find? Okay, yeah, the NPS, I don't see, Linda, I don't see an issue with us sharing the NPS with the staff from the organizations. I don't know. I would just want to, I would encourage you to go through your organization. I think it would be good for them to know that you have access to this tool and that you're using it. Just for good communication, because again, maybe this is something that you could take the onus off the finance department by having you guys fill it out instead of recreating the wheel or repeating the work. If the program level can do it and you guys are filling it out properly, you submit it at the end of the quarter to your finance department and your program director, and then they can incorporate it into the claims. I mean, I think that would be helpful. And Linda was fine with us sharing it, so we can certainly share it. The form is, let me see if I can pull it up. I'm not gonna be able to pull it up quickly. Yeah, the form is filled out each quarter. So once quarter one submitted, the contractor should be starting with a blank version of the form for quarter two. We don't want to see this built up. But yeah, we just want to see specifically what was purchased in that quarter. Yeah, all right, Harriet. So there's definitely seems to be consensus for sharing this tool. So yep, we can definitely do that. Piper, quick question is, do we have the email addresses for the participants when they registered?
Yes, as long as they register, they were required to give an email address, and we can certainly send an email out to them.
Excellent. So we'll send that tool to you folks who attended along with Tim's information for the network feed success and pathwise. All right. Okay, thank you, Harriet. All right, any other questions? We're hitting the 1 hour mark. Good. And I thought we would be like, I thought the content from the training, I'm like, oh, I think we're gonna not be filling the full hour, but here we are. So more than happy to have these fruitful conversations. All right, I think that's a wrap. Thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. All right, everyone have a great day and rest of the week.